Content warning. Some episodes may include strong language or sensitive topics, including trauma or assault. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, my name's Carrie Jo, and this is my podcast, Holy Chuckles, where we tell real stories, witness raw faith, and experience holy laughter. Today's episode is going to be about how God led me through and healed my codependency, my traumas, my abandonment issues. I'm going to give you also a disclaimer because everybody's stories are their stories. We all grow up in families. We all grow up with siblings, with parents, whether they're biological, adopted, step, whatever it may be. Every story is different for each person living it. We're human, having this experience. Everybody may not see your story the way that you see it. So today I'm telling my story, this part of it, how it happened to me, the feelings I went through, the things God led me through. So I want to make sure we're clear on that. The way that I believe is that when we're born, we come into this world with an open spirit, and really a direct connection to God. Like we haven't been tainted, if you will. Trauma hasn't hit us. People haven't done things to us. We haven't lived through anything. So when we're babies and little kids, we still have, our light shines bright, right? So for me, this podcast, when God and I talked about it, it was about people telling their real stories and how they made it through trauma and coming back to their faith, whatever their faith may be, coming back to God, right? We know there is Baptist, Methodist, Catholic, maybe it's, I don't go to church at all. Maybe it's, I don't really feel I belong in church, whatever it may be. This podcast is about coming back to faith. And I know sometimes people think the name says something different, like we're going to sit here and laugh the whole time. That's not really it, right? People that know me in my past, I'm very funny. I like to tell a lot of jokes, but this is dealing with people's traumas and the past things that were done to them. So when I say holy chuckles, the chuckles is to give a little relief while we're talking about certain things. And that's where the stories come in, the funny stories or the little small tidbits of information that maybe will make you laugh while you're also taking a breath going, I can't believe this person has been through this and has still survived and is still here and found their way back to God. So I just wanted to give a little insight as to what our podcast is about and what the name really means. So we don't think we're going to be telling jokes the whole time, because we really are talking about real stories. For me, our God center, where God lives in us, right here in our middle part where God is there, our God center when we're babies, when we're children, like it's whole, it's untouched. Like when you see kids running around, they're radiant, especially kids that haven't been told. This is my favorite saying that my family used to say when we were kids: children are to be seen and not heard. I hate that saying. That's the dumbest saying ever, right? Because it's untrue. Children should be heard. They should be seen. They should have their light just flowing freely to experience life. But a lot of times we hold our children down. We put our thumbs on them. We tell them who they should be, and who they are is not correct. Just because maybe they're loud. Maybe they're different. Maybe we're tired. Maybe we've had a hard day at work. You know what? Maybe we just don't want to hear that extra noise. So we tell them children should be seen and not heard. No, stop telling your kids that. Your kids should be heard. They should have opinions. They should ask questions. They should be children. My life is twofold in that way, right? Because in some of my life, I was able to be a child, but in some of my life, I wasn't. My traumas and some of the things that I've been through created my unworthiness. some of my experiences, made me a people pleaser, made me believe that my worth was what I could do for people, not just who I was as a person. And when that is shown to you at a young age, you believe it. I'm 50 and I just stopped believing it. That's a long time to believe the only way you can be loved is what you do for somebody. Let me tell you a little bit about my family. Grew up in a small town in Texas. My parents came from two different worlds. Sometimes internally I struggle with that, right? Because my mom was a preacher's kid, not just a preacher's kid, a Pentecostal preacher's kid. And she was one of 9, and she was the second one of 9. And in that family, my mom was like the second parent, right? Because that's a lot of kids. That's a lot of kids. I used to joke. And I used to kind of get in trouble when I joked about this. I used to say every time my grandfather hung up his pants, my grandmother had another kid. Okay. Being from a minister's family, that joke really didn't land very well half the time, but that's okay. Cause I'm going to keep saying it because 9 kids is a lot. So, sorry. Just made myself giggle a little bit. So not only was she the second of 9, she was the first female. And so in that family, females were, I don't want to say made, but they were taught what their place was. And their place was to raise a family. And unfortunately, my grandmother having this many kids, right? She couldn't do it on her own. So my mom had to step in, not because she wanted to. They didn't ask her. I wasn't there, so I'm not going to say they didn't ask her. I'm just going to probably guess, and it's a good guess, that they didn't ask her. It was just her duty as the first female child in line. So she raised kids practically her whole life. That is difficult to comprehend, right? I don't even know what my mom's dreams were. I don't even know if she had dreams. I'm sure she did. I remember looking through her annual that I found online one time when I was doing some research to understand some things better. I didn't even know she was in plays. She was in plays. What? She liked to do that. I know she loved to sing, but I didn't know she liked to do that. So it was very eye-opening for me understanding I didn't even know my mom. I didn't even know my mom. I never even asked her what her dreams were, but really, we weren't asked what our dreams were going to be. We didn't even know about dreams, right? And I'm sure it's because her family didn't teach her about dreams, because theirs was about raising kids, doing what they needed to get done. My dad, though, he was completely different. I like to say my dad was feral. And I only say this because I've had a couple of feral cats. And they just do whatever they want. That was my dad. He had a different life than what my mom had. He ran the streets with his brother. He did whatever he wanted to do. His parents didn't keep their thumb on him. So two opposites meet, and it's like, hey, how are you? I've never lived your life, and maybe I want some structure. And this one says, hey, how are you? You know what? I've had all the structure I can stand. Maybe I want to experience life through your eyes. And so they get together. But when you raise a family with one side very structured and one side not very structured, man, it creates a little bit of an imbalance. My parents had what I like to call 2 sets of kids. I have 2 siblings that are 10 and 13 years older than I am. And then I have a sibling that's 17 months older than I am. We always, I'm not going to say we, I always heard it. And so I guess I repeated it. We heard my parents had the babysitters, and then they had the babies. And if we go back to what I just said about my mom being the second oldest and the oldest girl, that's probably how she felt too. Her parents had the babysitters, and then they had the babies. So me and my siblings, we had really two separate families in the same household. We didn't understand what dysfunction was. When we were growing up, dysfunction was parents not together, physical abuse, not having any parents, maybe being a foster kid, or your parents having a substance abuse. None of that was in our house. But man, was there dysfunction, and we didn't even know about it. My siblings, who were 10 and 13 years older than I am, lived separate lives. I learned later in life that both of them had major tragedies in their life, and we never discussed it. In fact, as I got older, I heard it through our family grapevine. And I always wondered about it, asked questions about it, but nobody would ever say anything. But then they would just whisper little things behind, right? So my sister had a different relationship with my mom. She was the oldest of four. Well, sorry, she was the second oldest of four, but she was the female oldest, right? And so what happened to my mom? My mom had to raise kids. It was the same cycle. My sister had to help with us. I remember her saying, I helped raise you. I didn't understand that until I was an adult. I didn't realize when my brother, who was 13 years older than I am, had his children. And my mom would say, go play with the kids, go take them here, go do that. I now realize what my sister was meaning. Who wants to watch their siblings that they didn't agree to have? These are not my kids. I did not want these, but I'm made to take care of them. No, thank you. So for me, I had a complete different relationship with my mom. Oh man, that woman was my everything. Everything. Man, she could do no wrong in my eyes. My mom never let us rest. If we were, I don't know if you ever worked in a restaurant, but there's a saying in a restaurant: if you have time to lean, you have time to clean. And man, that was my mom. If you have time to sit down, you have time to be doing something, but guaranteed that's what happened to her, right? So it wasn't like, let's relax. And I'm sure mine and my brother's, that is just a little bit older than I am, relaxation, we probably got more than my older siblings did, because I saw the changes in my mom. I saw her relax. I saw her calm down. I saw her really kind of become another person. Especially as I grew older, I assumed I just wore her down and she was tired, because I was always into some kind of mischief. But I think she started to realize a lot of things. So with my mom, she could do no wrong. I spent time in the kitchen with her when she was cooking, cleaning, whatever. I had a little grocery store set up, whatever she was cooking, I was right there under her feet. When we were in the car, I was rubbing her shoulders. Like, my mom had a golden glow around her as far as I was concerned. I didn't have a close relationship with my dad. My brother that was 17 months older did. They were into the same things. They loved cars. They loved fixing cars. My brother was my dad's little shadow. I didn't really get along with my dad. I really didn't care for my dad, but also my dad wasn't really one to show that much affection or, want to do a lot of things, but also his parents didn't do that either. So how do you know what you don't know? So he was just my dad. He went to work. He made money. He spanked my bottom. That was literally the view I had of my dad. And by the way, he spanked my bottom a lot because I got in trouble a lot. My mom would always say, wait till your father gets home. Man, that anticipation of getting your butt whooped. And listen, from the time I woke up, I stayed in trouble. Okay? I stayed in things. I stayed in mischief. So it could be 8:03. And I'm already being told, wait till your father gets home. Do you know the amount of hours between 8:03 and 6 p.m.? And back then, our parents didn't text. They didn't call, right? They didn't call your parent. Like my dad was at work. He didn't get a call to be like, you know what Carrie Joe did today? No, you had to anticipate if your mom was going to remember the naughty stuff you did. Was when the day went by and you tried to make her laugh all day and forget, was she going to let it go? Was she going to tell him the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Or was she going to be like, I'm going to let this slide a bit and just tell him a little bit, right? No, you had to wait all day, anticipation, how big that butt whooping was going to be. Okay? That's how I knew my dad. He was the disciplinarian for me. So you know what? I didn't really care for disciplinarians. I don't like to obey. I didn't like to obey. Right? What I did learn about my family is, boy, we knew how to keep secrets. We knew how to keep secrets. Not just our family of 6, but I'm talking our extended family. Everyone knew how to keep secrets. Now we could gossip. Boy, could we. We could tell little tidbits of secrets, but we wouldn't tell the whole truths. We would just gossip. We would just say things about one another, right? So I didn't really understand that. That didn't really make sense to me, because why wouldn't you just tell the stories and let's get on with it? Let's move on with it. What I learned is if we didn't talk about it, it didn't happen. But it did. All of it did. Every single gossip we said, every single story we didn't talk about, every little thing that we kept to ourselves, we didn't talk about it, but it happened. All of it happened. So sexual abuse, right? We weren't taught about sex. I don't remember my parents setting me down at any age talking about sex, how it works, the birds and the bees. I don't remember any of that. I can guarantee you we didn't talk about people not touching you in places they shouldn't touch you, right? We didn't talk about people using you for their own self-gratification, even though you were a child. We didn't talk about the no-no places. We didn't talk about you don't have to give hugs or kisses to people you don't want to because they make you feel weird or because they creep you out, right? We were made to, because that's your family, that's your friend. They love you. I don't know them. I don't want to, right? But you do it because your parents tell you to. And what are you taught growing up, especially someone that comes from a church background? Obey your parents. We weren't allowed to question our parents. We were to obey them, and that is it. Again, children are to be seen and not heard. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about sexual abuse. Let's talk about what happened. I was sexually abused at the church we attended. Let me tell you something. Church is one of my favorite places to go when I was a kid. Why? There were several reasons. One, I could see my mom in her full glory. And I mean her full glory. When I tell you I saw a gold light around her and how amazing she was, when she was in her element, which church was her element. When I would watch her pray and worship, I would be like, I want to be just like her. When we talk about superheroes, that woman was a prayer warrior and she was a superhero. She wasn't lifting buildings. She wasn't pushing people out of the way of moving cars. You know what she was doing? She was connecting with God and praying for people night and day. I would hear it. Not just in church, but in her life. We were in the car. We were in our home. Wherever we were, she was praying for people. She was a prayer warrior. You know what? She was my superhero. My superhero. And when I would see her in church in her full glory, right? In her connection with God, in her love for God, I'd be like, oh, I want to be just like her. And I would remember, I would look up to her with these adoring eyes and just be like, oh my gosh, I want to be just like her when I grow up. Right? And then let's talk about the worship, right? Let's talk about the singing. Favorite song. I got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. When that song come on, I don't care where I was, what I was doing. I would come running. Favorite song, because you know why? I had the joy, 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 joy down in my heart. As a kid, I had so much joy. Like, I had really, really blonde hair. And I used to think to myself when I was a kid, that was my joy. Like, that was my joy beaming out of my head. That's how joyous I was, because I had been untouched, no trauma. And maybe I did have trauma and I didn't even know about it. But I didn't know anything but to have joy, right? So church, I loved it. I love seeing my mom in her full glory. I love being around the people. I loved worshiping. I loved the singing. What I didn't love is when I started getting sexually abused in church. What I didn't love is when I started being led to dark places in the church, being taken to rooms and the lights turned off, and being told this is just our secret. Sexual abuse taught me about secrets. I didn't even know how to keep secrets. But sexual abuse taught me how to keep those secrets. I never told anyone because it's our secret. Man, how do you explain something that feels good to your body but hurts you deep in your soul? How do you explain something that feels good at the moment, but then you realize as you're going through, I don't think this is right? Because if this is supposed to happen, if this is not naughty, why am I doing this with everybody? We went to church all the time, Sunday morning, in the evening, Wednesday, right? Wednesday night. So now I had 3 times out of the week that I dreaded, right? The place that was holy to me, the place that was joyous to me, the place that I found my joy, 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 joy down in my heart, now was a place of, I was scared. I couldn't say something. I dreaded it. Was I going to be hurt today, or was I going to be helped today? And as a young child, I will say this, even though you're stimulated, right? Because that's what your body does. It doesn't matter how old you are. Your body works the same way, be it a young child or an old adult. Your body works the same way. when you are stimulated, things happen, especially as a child, that you don't understand. But stimulation makes you feel good. But for a child, penetration does not. And it hurts. And it is agonizing. And when that happens to you as a young child, you dread it. You hurt. You are unsure of what's going on because it's not supposed to happen. So then you have two things going on in your mind and body. You have a sensation that happens that makes you feel good, but then you also have something that happens that makes you feel, that hurts. It doesn't feel good. So that also was how I felt about church. Someplace that makes me feel good, but also someplace that makes me feel horrible. And with trauma, right? Trauma can do one of two things. It can bring you closer to God, or it can tear you away from God. And I remember when I was a kid, my favorite song was, and you hear it when the podcast starts. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. But that light was snuffed out by someone else's desire to have their gratification. How gross it was, how sick it was, but to have their gratification met. So for me, I didn't draw closer to God. I drew away from God, partly because my parents didn't protect me, because we don't talk about it. It didn't happen. And I bet you're asking yourself, well, how do your parents help you when they don't know? But they did. But they did. I remember being caught in the act. And let me tell you something, when something like this is happening to you, when someone flips on the light and the startle happens, and you go through a couple of things. One, yes, this is going to end. I'm going to be helped. I'm going to be saved. Someone's going to see that this shouldn't happen, and I am not going to have to go through this anymore. Or it's going to be swept under the rug because we're in a church. And man, you don't want that to happen, right? You don't want your churchgoers, your people, to see the yuck that's happening in your place where God should be, when your place of worship, right? I hoped for the best, but I got the worst. I remember being kind of with a hand on my back, pushed into the deacon's office. My parents called in. And I remember the discussion. See, I was just put in the corner, because why? Children should be seen and not heard. Decisions were made for me. And the decision that was made is that this person had a quote unquote bright future. They wouldn't do it again. She looks okay. She doesn't look like something's wrong with her, so she should be fine. Karen would make sure, she prayed enough for her. She, talked to her a little bit, whatever, and she would be fine. But never once in that room was I asked how I felt. Was I scared? Did this person now scare me? Did I run from one side of the church to the other when I saw this person? Or even when I was in the lobby and saw the car pull up, did I hide? No one asked me those questions because this person searched for me. I would hide in dark rooms. I would hide in different places. I would hide in the nursery and help with the babies so I wouldn't have to be in the church auditorium. But this person still found me, right? I wasn't asked those things. I was told what was going to happen because children are to be seen and not heard. So they thought it was going to stop. But our church did activities outside of the church. I remember when just here recently, a couple of months ago, when it was hot, me and two of my best friends went and rented a boat, got on the boat, and neither one of them, one, had driven a boat. Okay. We didn't discuss these things before we went, right? Because we're in our season of let's just do it. And neither one of them had tubed. And they're like, yeah, we're not doing that. And I'm like, well, then why are y'all here? Just to ride on the boat and just to have fun. I'm like, no, I'm tubing. So one of y'all are going to have to figure this out. Y'all are going to have to drive the boat. And then I'm like, okay, it's tubing time. I'm ready. Let's do this. So as we're tubing, and let me say this, I am a type of person. It's not that I've held all my traumas in. I just make jokes about them. I'm sarcastic about them. That's how I've always dealt with them. So it's not like they didn't know some of these things had happened to me, right? But I don't tell the full story. I just give bits and pieces and then throw some jokes in along the way, right? So it's not so uncomfortable. So I am putting on my life jacket and I said, oh man, this is going to be fantastic because this is going to be the first time that I've tubed on a boat that I didn't have to get molested first. And then this was my prize. Okay. So, I thought I said it in my head, honestly, as I was putting the life jacket on. I thought I literally said it in my head. But when I saw both of them staring at me, I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why I said that out loud. I'm sorry. I shocked you with that. But you know what? It's true. We would go out on the lake. I would get molested. My prize for not saying anything and going through it was that I would get to tube. And so now this was going to be an experience to override that memory. And man, did it override that memory. I had the best time on this lake. And that memory was wiped clear. And I'm so grateful that God did that for me with two people that I adore. And let me tell you, I did great tubing on that lake, but my last ride, I was like, God, me and you, we're going to ride this tube for however long it takes. And this is going to be the best ride of my life. Man, I stayed on that tube forever. Stayed on that tube forever. My friends said they could not even see my face. My smile was so big. So God healed that memory for me. And I now have a new memory to replace it. And I'm so grateful for that. I remember our minister, he used to bang this book in his hand, right? Just to give that extra oomph. I hated that. It startled me every time, right? I hated that. After that experience in church happened, what I didn't understand is why he could stand up there and preach the word of God, but not follow it. Because As I got older, and even recently started reading the Bible, and it's very clear in Matthew 18:5-6. It says, "And whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. If anyone causes one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea." But I didn't matter. He preached the word of God, but he swept this under the rug. He's human. Yeah, of course he is. Things happen. People stumble. I stumbled all my whole life. But every Sunday morning, every Sunday night, every Wednesday, he preached this word of God, seeing me in a pew. And he never thought about this verse. He never thought about what Jesus said. That's when me and the church, we were never going to be. We were never going to be. He took that away from me because he used his authority and did not do the right thing. He used his authority and swept it under the rug. So, my parents weren't perfect, and they didn't protect me there, right? Didn't talk about it. Never talked about it. And then I started being sexually abused in a family, a friend's house. Hated going there just as much as I hated going to church. My parents didn't protect me at church. Why would they protect me at this really good friend's house? Like, this was a good friend that they really liked. After a while of this continuously happening, let me say this. It was an older, very much older kid, one that knew better. Once they realized what was happening, I was reprimanded. Huh? It happened at church. Y'all didn't do anything. It's happening here. Like, is this not, how confused could one person be, right? How confused can one child be? You didn't do anything. You didn't say it was naughty. How am I supposed to know? Doesn't make sense to me. And then we get home, I'm reprimanded. I'm not reprimanded in front of everyone. That person's not reprimanded, but I'm reprimanded at home. And then silence. I find this as we look out into the world, back when I was a kid, as an adult, as a young adult, as an old adult, right? I find that this is the culture we live in. Maybe not everybody, but this was the culture I lived in. Women are blamed. Females are blamed. What was she wearing? What did she do? How did she provoke it? I was a child. and not only that, I was a child that was a tomboy, right? I wanted to play football, but they said, no, you girls can't do that. I wanted to hang out with the boys, and I did. I was not a young girl that wanted to wear makeup, I didn't want to wear a dress at all. In fact, I remember when my mom dropped me off at middle school and we made a deal because it meant something to her that I would try to wear dresses or skirts twice a week to middle school. Okay, Karen K, I'll give you what you want in words. But I would make sure they were always skirts, right? Because I can wear shorts under skirts. And as soon as she dropped me off, that skirt was coming off and them shorts were ready. I wasn't a kid or a girl that wore makeup. I didn't wear, these clothes or anything. And I'm not saying that if you wear makeup, if you wear these clothes, that you deserve for these things to happen to you. I'm just trying to point out how I was as a child, and I was still sexually abused because it wasn't about how I looked. It wasn't about what I wore, or it wasn't about my actions. It was about these men and their self-gratification and their perversion with children, and how they could dominate a young child instead of a grown-ass person. That's what this was about. But I was blamed for that. So in not talking about it, it didn't erase it. In fact, it magnified it. It let me know now I have to deal with my problems on my own. And I did. We never talked about sexual abuse. Boy, we kept secrets, and boy, we gossiped. My extended family, and no shade to them, right? At all. And when I talk about some of these people in my life, I want to make it clear. I hold no grudges. I have forgiven. I love. But you have to talk about your traumas, and it's part of your testimony, right? Testimonies can't just be all sunshine and roses. Testimonies are going to have some yuck in them. What I learned from the adult women in my family is how to gossip, how to tear people down, not edify and lift up. I heard little bits and pieces of stories, but not the whole truths, right? What I learned from the men in my family is we're not going to protect you. We're going to put you in a box. We're going to show you what you should and should not be doing, but yet we're going to let others do things to you. The other adults in my family, all the adults in my family, I learned children should be seen and not heard. That stifles a child. That pushes a child down into a small, unworthy box. And if I'm not perfect, if I don't do all the right things, my family's going to gossip about me. My family's going to say things to other people about me. Why? Because I watched it. Not only did I watch it, I was part of it. I grew up being part of it. So now in my adulthood, I was gossiping with my partners. I was gossiping with friends. I was gossiping at work. Instead of edifying and lifting up, I was tearing down. I was doing the same thing to others that was done to me. Right? Got a little older. My mom, she had cancer. About 13 or 14. I don't even know how I knew this. I know someone didn't set me down. I know my mom was sick. I remember going to volleyball camp and she was sick, but I don't remember all the ins and outs of it, right? And this is when I say sometimes my mom, I feel that she was so gracious. Maybe it was secret keeping. I don't know. But I feel like she was trying to let me be a child. I was the baby of my family. I felt like maybe we had a little bit of a better bond, and she was trying to do something really kind for me. And maybe she remembered all the things that had happened to me, the sexual abuse. And she's like, shit, let's not give this little kid one more thing, on top of the other stuff. I don't know why I just wasn't sit down and been like, hey, your mom has cancer. This is what we're doing. Da 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 da. Right? But we didn't. I also didn't know that she had cancer once, went in remission, and the cancer came back. I didn't even know that until I was in a pool just a year ago or a little bit longer. And it was said, oh, the second time when it came back. And I was like, wait, what? What? The second time? She had it twice? What? My mom, when we lived in Washington State and she was going to the University of Washington for her treatments. And at some point in that time of her treatments, she made a decision for herself. And she said, I'm not doing these treatments anymore. If God wants to heal me, he'll heal me. And man, I was pissed. How dare you make that decision while you still have children? How dare you? I was so mad. And I carried that anger with me throughout my whole, from probably the age of 14 to just the age of like 48. Because I had no idea she had it. She came out of remission. So no wonder she made that decision. Had I known that then, I'd have been like, yeah, I understand that. You've already been through this yuck once. You're tired. You've had enough. But because we didn't talk about it, I had no idea. And so I went through my life with a perception that my mom didn't care enough about me to try to survive. But then at 48, I was given the knowledge that she did. She did it once. She did it twice. And then said, I'm not doing this anymore. Now I had the understanding. So when you have the perception with the knowledge and now you have the understanding, oh my God, your world changes. And now I went, oh. And all I could do was feel for her. How she must have felt having to make that decision to leave her family because she just couldn't do it anymore. She just couldn't fight anymore. Wow. If I would have known that back then, the difference we would have had in our relationship when she was sick, the moments I would have tried to create when she was sick. Man, that gets me. It gets me. Anyway, my parents, my mom, I don't know who, because we're secret keepers, so we don't tell everything. They decided that she was going to come back to Texas and she wanted to die in her parents' home. Man, as a child, when you have to anticipate the passing of your mom and you don't know when it's going to happen, you anticipate Christmas, right? That's a good anticipation. You anticipate what you're going to get for your birthday or the parties that are going to be thrown, right? But man, anticipating when your mom is going to die, that takes you through some shit. That takes you through it, right? Because you don't know how to act. What do? Do you act sad? I'm a kid, right? Do you act sad? Do you act mad? Are you happy? Like, what do you do? Where do you go from that? My mom's going to Texas to die. Well, cool. I get to go back to Texas, which I'm super excited about. But the other side of it, my mom's going to die. So I'm not sure. Do I be sad? Am I happy? What am I? When we got back to my mom, my grandfather came up and took my mom home, and me and my dad, we took a U-Haul. And listen, this may not be the appropriate time to tell this story, but I'm gonna go ahead and tell it because it makes me laugh. So my dad was not part of the period process, of course, right? When because my mom took care of that part, and I'm sure, as in most families, a lot of uh dual households, the mom takes care of the whole period situation for the girls, and in our house, that's how it went. And I remember we were loading up our belongings to drive back to Texas in this U-Haul, and I had to say to my dad, "Meh," started my period. Okay. My dad, eyes wide open, was like, "Oh God." And I'm like, "We have to go to the store, right?" And my mom, the supervisor has joined us, little tiny. My mom, she would there we go. My mom would not let me wear tampons. And man, I saw this as my way to get what I have wanted, is to wear tampons. Like, all teenage girls, right? Most teenage girls, whatever. I don't know. What I know is that the teenage girls were talking about them, so I was gonna do it. So my dad, we were in the store and we walked over to that section, and okay, never wore a tampon, didn't even know how tampons worked. Looked at the box, there were directions on the back. Cool, I can read, I can follow the directions. So my dad's like, I've never seen these before. Like, I don't think these are what's been under the cabinet. I'm like, you know nothing, old man. You know nothing. And he's like, maybe we should go with what we know. You know nothing. No, Dad, this is what they wear. This is what I'm wearing. This is what I'm supposed to wear. Being of the generation that the mom takes care of that, he was like, okay. And so we bought them and went to the bathroom, followed the instructions as best I knew how to do. Get in the U-Haul truck, right? And we're going down on the road, right? We're on our way. Well, I'm going to tell you, I don't think that I followed the directions correctly, because a U-Haul truck is very bumpy, and with every bump, I felt that tampon, and I mean with every bump. And can I say this? I knew my dad was going to be so pissed if I said, "Hey, maybe you were right. Maybe this was not the time." I tried my best to withstand constant pressure, I will call it, from that tampon. With every bump we hit, it got worse. And it started to hurt. And I started to just recoil within myself. And I had to get up the nerve. Okay? I had to get up the nerve because he was going to be pissed. I said, "Oh, Dad." And I knew when my dad was annoyed with me, because he'd be like, "Yes, Carrie Joe." And mind you, I would like to say that I never knew when I was in trouble or people were irritated with me because I had the double name. And that's very hard for a child, because usually when you're in trouble, they get called by their first and middle name. I was called that all the time. So when I heard the "Yes, Carrie Joe," I was like, oh, is that irritation? Is that just, I'm tired, I need to keep driving? What is this? I said, "Dad, we got to stop." And he's like, "I need to go to the bathroom." And he's like, "No, we just started. You just went to the bathroom." I'm like, "No, I need to go to the bathroom, but you got to stop by another store." He's like, "What?" I'm like, "Dad, just go with me here." What? I said, Dad, just go with me here. And he's like, why? And I'm like, Dad, I should have never done the tampons. They hurt. They don't feel good. And I don't know why anyone wears them. And he's like, Carrie Joe, I told you I didn't think this is what we should be doing. And I'm like, I know, but Mom would never let me do it. And so I had to take my shot where I could. And unfortunately, it was with you. But Dad, please, you've got to stop again. I can't do this the whole way. There's no way I can go through this. He was so irritated, but he did stop. We fixed the problem and we headed back to Texas. No more problems except for his snoring every time we stopped in a hotel room to stay. And whoo, I got no sleep during that time. But got to Texas and no one forewarned me how my mom was going to look. She had lost so much weight. And so when we got there, I'm a child. She is, I'm a child. I'm a teenager, but she is the love of my life. I adore her. I love being around her. I cannot wait to see her. I'm so excited. And no one explains the difference she's going to look. And by the way, she can't walk. She's in a wheelchair. I come running in. I don't even recognize her because she looks like one of her sisters that was smaller than her. Listen, I'm a short person. I've always been a short person. And my mom to me looked like 6'9", right? She was large and beautiful and glorious and just everything. When I came running in, I didn't recognize her. In fact, I don't even think I greeted her because I didn't know it was her. I thought she was one of my aunts. And I was like, oh, Mom. And I was just shocked and taken surprised. And my heart kind of took a leap like, she's so frail. Can I hug her? I'm a good hugger. When I say I'm a good hugger, like if you ever get a hug from me, it's full on. I'm a good hugger. But then I was like, am I going to break her? So after I got past that point of seeing her like that, I realized what we were in for. I don't even know if I realized it that night or if it took me a couple of days to realize what we were in for. And her health started to keep deteriorating, and it became part of my place to take care of her. Taking care of a sick parent is not a child's place. But because I adored her, I didn't even think twice about it. That was my mom. I love her. She's always loved me. I'm going to take care of her. I learned what happens to a child when they have to take care of their parent that is sick. They become codependent. They suppress emotions, right? Because you just got to keep going. They have an overdeveloped sense of responsibility because they got to do it. But yet they become also hyper independent. So weird to be codependent and hyper independent at the same time. I had to give my mom baths. I had to change her colostomy bag. I sat and read with her. I remember having to feed her. Man, I can tell you to this day, you cannot spray Simple Green cleaner around me. I will go into a full meltdown. Number one, it smells horrible to me. It's so gross. I remember the smell of bodily fluids with the mix of that cleaner, and I can't even handle it. I remember one day I was with someone and they were cleaning something, and I came out from a different part of the house and I said, you can't use that. I can't have that smell. It's so disgusting. And had to explain to them why. What I learned by taking care of my mom when she was sick and I was a child was that my worth came from what I could do, not who I was. And that really deeply implants in you, especially coming from sexual abuse, where it's not about who you are, but what you could give of your body, right? Because you give that gratification to that predator. And so it's all about your worth is in what you can give, not who you are. I will tell you a quick story with my mom. She was on morphine, and I remember sitting at my grandfather's table, and she looked at me, and we were eating something, and she was in her wheelchair across the table from me, and she looked at me and she said, "Carrie Jo, do you see him?" Okay. And I'm like, "Oh no. What do I say? Do I see what?" And remember, I come from a religious family. So I'm like, "Are there demons here? What are we doing?" And I'm like, "Mom, I'm not sure if I'm seeing the same things you're seeing. So tell me what we're seeing." And she's like, "Do you see him on my shoulder?" And I said, "What?" Because now I'm intrigued, right? And she said, "You don't see him? They're like little," and I remember she said, like, little elves or little fairies. And one was riding a little bike, like a little tricycle bike. One was like kind of juggling, and she had like two on each side. She explained them fully. And I'm like, "Oh my God, I wondered when you were going to mention them. I thought only I could see them." I feel so much better now that I know you can see them. I could not see anything, not one single thing, but realize because of her morphine intake that now she was having visions, illusions, and just being, quite frankly, kind of out of her mind and just functioning the best that she could. But she was seeing these little, I'll call them fairies, on her shoulders. And the way that she described them, man, we laughed for 30 to 40 minutes about that. We talked about them. We said what they were doing. I was in that story. And for a moment, I was back to being a kid because we were using our imagination. Now, she wasn't using her imagination. She saw something, but I was using my imagination. And so I was back to being a kid. And man, I will have that memory for the rest of my life. That in the depths of her sickness, we got to play make-believe one more time. So my mom passed away. I was 15 when she passed away. And it was in the month of December. So holidays, this Christmas time is not a fantastic time for me. Never really cared for it. But my dad, he was working in the hometown that we came from. And so at that time he said, "I'm going to leave you with your grandfather. I'm going to go find a place to live, all these things, and I will come and get you when I have a place." My grandfather was not equipped to handle a teenager. And let me say this. My grandfather was not equipped to handle me at all. Not only was I a teenager, but now I was a teenager who had to be an adult early in life. And you couldn't tell me shit. I didn't care what you said. I wasn't going to obey what you said. I was a little 16-year-old adult running around, and I didn't care. And boy, we got into it a lot. But not only that, my grandfather he wasn't used to having a kid around. So I would wake up sometimes and he would be gone, like for the whole day, because he was off doing his thing, because that's what he was used to doing. So I was like, okay. So I would have to entertain myself. I would have to figure things out, whatever it may be. I don't hold my grandfather responsible. I don't even know that he was asked, do you want to take care of a teenager? It was just, well, she functioned on her own. She can still function on her own. So cool. I'm just another body in the house. I'm not saying my grandfather didn't love me. He did. I loved my grandfather, and he loved me, and we bonded over ice cream at Dairy Queen all the time. So that was my favorite time with my grandpa. He just wasn't equipped to have a teenager. And my dad should have never left me there. My dad should have been a dad and taken me with him. But finally, my dad came to get me. And what I realized is my dad didn't come to get me because it was his responsibility as a father to protect now, to nurture and love me, especially through this grief. My dad needed a keeper. My dad's son needed someone to make sure the house stayed clean, to make sure that meals were prepared. And remember, this is what we were taught, because this is what my mom was taught. This was a woman's place. I was not a woman, I was a child. But yet this was my place. To try to figure out how to cook meals, or what a schedule should be to clean a house, or how to do that while going to school, was weird to me. Like, do you vacuum every day? Do you dust every day? We had chores growing up. I had to dust every Saturday. And let me tell you this. My mom knew if you did not move the items or the tchotchkes on the TV stand or whatever, because I tried it several times just to dust around them. Oh no, she knew. And she would ask the question, did you move everything when you dusted? And I would lie, yes, I did. And then she would say, Carrie Joe. And I'd be like, no, I didn't. So I would have to go redo it. But we had chores like normal kids. I wasn't taught how to keep a house. This was not Little House on the Prairie. I wasn't taught those things because I had a mom and we were given chores. But the way that we were also taught was a woman's place is to take care of men. I realize, no, thank you. No, thank you. You got 2 arms, 2 legs, just like I do. Why do I need to take care of you? When my mom was sick in Washington State, she would she would stay at the university and then come back home every couple of weeks. And I remember one day we were sitting at the table, and my parents, probably just as a lot of other Southern parents, are big on yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir, please and thank yous, right? And so we were sitting at the table, and my dad said, Carrie Joe, get up and get me whatever. And I just sat there. And he's like, did you not hear me? And I'm like, yep. Heard you, old Freddie Lee. I sure heard you. And he's like, then why aren't you moving? Well, did you forget something? And he said, what do you mean? I'm like, did you forget something? And I heard my mom, who has been through these cancer and radiation treatments, I heard her sigh like, crap, here we go. And he's like, I didn't forget anything. I asked you to get up and get it, and I expect it. And I said, no, sir, you didn't say please. And when I tell you, fire came out of this man's head, and he was bald, right? He was bald. When I say the glow showed, and then I promise you, like the emoji where it shows the fire coming out of the emoji's head, that was him. The fire came out of his head. He didn't say one more word. He got up, he walked out the back door, and he slammed the door. And I was like, man, I guess he didn't want it. And my mom, she's like, could you not just go and get it? And I'm like, no, because you guys tell us all the time, please and thank you, please and thank you, please and thank you. But why doesn't it pertain to you? Why doesn't it pertain to him? Because I'm a female? Because I'm a child? Well, that doesn't seem accurate to me. That day was not a good day in our home. And that's when I realized that I'm not really good at obeying. I really am not. So when I was taking care of my dad, because I learned how to cook and clean, because that's what you're supposed to do. And not just that, that's what I just did for my mom. So why wouldn't I do it for my dad? But I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. Then my dad, came to me and said, well, I got a job in Florida, and so I'm going to leave you here. I, have talked over with some people they had been friends with for a long time whose kids were grown and I think had kids of their own, and they're going to be guardians. You can stay here, or you can go out and stay with them. Well, yeah, I'm not going out and staying with two older people that I don't really like have a relationship with. I see them when you go square dancing, right? I'm going to stay here, right? And I wasn't even asked like, you going to be okay? And let's not forget, I had older siblings. Like, why didn't my dad call my sister who had taken care of me when I was a baby and said, hey, like, this is what I got to do. Can your sister come live with you? My sister was married. It's not like she she had a stable home. She was married, right? I did have a sister-in-law that would come and check on me and bring my nephew and niece so I could see them. But no one ever said, hey, do you want to come stay with us? I was just left alone by myself in this townhome. And you know what this does to a teenager is creates abandonment wounds. Well, I already have abandonment wounds because my mom died. So let's compound them times two. It forces isolation. You know, you go home by yourself to nothing, literally nothing. I'm already an adult, so let's accelerate that a little bit more. I don't trust that anyone's going to stay, because why would they? In fact, I didn't know that my sister had a conversation with my dad and said, hey, let Carrie Jo come stay with me. Let Carrie Jo come live with me. And my dad said no. Well, of course, he needed a housekeeper and someone to cook, because that's what we were brought up to do. And I didn't even learn that my sister asked me to come live with her until 3-4 months ago. Here recently. I was like, are you kidding me? What the hell? When my dad did that, it gave me no guidance in my grief. I just lost my mom, my everything, my world. And now my dad was leaving me without even telling me how to grieve. And I get it now. I understand it now. He didn't even know how to grieve. He had no clue how to grieve. So how can you teach someone how to grieve if you don't even know how to grieve? I get it. But at that time, I should have been nurtured. I should have been supported. I should have been loved and carried through it. But I was left to survive it. And I didn't even know how to do that, but I did the best that I could. And some people will say, you said earlier in your testimony that you had a large extended family. Your mom had siblings that she took care of, siblings that even though their mom was there, she helped raise them. Where were they? What? I was never asked by anyone. Now, I'm going to say this. I was also a child. And what I remember is I was not asked by anyone. I can't say that they didn't say, hey, you want to come spend a couple of weeks with us? Hey, do you want to come and hang out with us on weekends? I don't know that they didn't say that. But I know for a fact I was never asked if I could come live with one of them while this was happening. Did they know this was happening? I don't know. I talked to them on the phone. I'm assuming that I told them I was by myself. Did I make not a big deal out of it? Probably. Why? Because I'm an adult now. I'm an adult now. Adults don't make big deals out of being left alone. Why? Because I'm an adult. I'm not a child anymore. I was made not to be a child. So I probably didn't even think it was a big deal. But I am going to tell you, coming from a small town where everybody knows you and your parents, especially my mom was active in the PTA and all growing up, we were in activities. So they knew my mom. And so, man, I had the best teachers. They would check on me. I had one teacher. Okay, I was failing typing, whatever, don't care. Okay, who fails typing? Who fails typing? I do. But she knew my parents and knew the right things to do, right? And so instead of me failing typing so I wouldn't get my high school diploma, she said, okay, Carrie Jo, you have no choice. Nah, she probably did give me a choice, but I knew I had no choice. But she said, you have to come in every morning before school and you have to practice typing. So every morning before school, I had a woman who came in an hour early before she needed to. And I'm just going to say her name. Her name is Connie Stone, and she was amazing. She came in every day an hour early to sit with me so I could pass typing. But I don't even know if she knew this, but what she did for me was give me an hour of female bonding like a mom, a nurturer. And she would sit and ask me questions. We would sit and joke. That was an hour of my day. Just me and her. Me and her. That's it. And I don't even know that she knew how much that meant to me. I don't even know that I knew at that time how much that meant to me. I had another teacher, Marcy Hargrove. Amazing. She really invested in me. She invested in me. I remember driving her nuts. I love the song Carry On My Wayward Son. And my favorite part of that song was the intro. And even when I talked to her just a little bit ago, she's like, I can't believe you still remember that. But I would play it over and over and over and over. I can keep saying over and over a million times because I wouldn't even listen to the whole song, just the intro. I don't care who you are. If you have not heard that intro, go listen to it. It is the best intro to a song, and it did something to my spirit. It sparked my joy, sparked my light. I loved it so much, and I'm sure it drove her crazy. I'm sure it did. But man, she let me do it. Why? Because it was one little piece of joy that cost her nothing to give me, and she gave it freely. Not only that, she would check on me all the time. She would make sure I was okay emotionally, but also she stuck that foot in my ass when I needed it. I remember being in her class one time and I said something. I'm very sarcastic. I pop off all the time. And she said, I had popped off in her class and she said, Carrie Jo, out. My feelings were so hurt. My feelings were so hurt. My favorite teacher, when I could do no wrong, she kicked me out of her class. You know why? Because I needed some guidance. I needed some structure. I needed some humbling because I was not an adult. I was a child. And she saw that. She kicked me out of her class. And man, remember, I'm at home alone. I don't get in trouble. I don't get grounded. I don't get talkings, right? I do whatever I want because there's no one there to stop me. I panicked. I went and found my best friend and I'm like, ooh, got her out of class, right? Knocked on the window, like, can I see this person? Got her out of class. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. Miss Hargrove just kicked me out of her class. And this person said, oh, what? And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm in so much trouble. And it's been a long time since I've been in trouble, right? So I went back and sat at the class, and, outside, and Miss Hargrove came out, and I said, I don't want to hear the disappointment that you're disappointing me. I don't want to hear that because then I got back on my adulthood, right? I got back on my adult voice. I don't want to hear that you're disappointed in me. I get it, whatever. And she's like, yeah, you know what? I am disappointed in you. You know why? Because I expect more from you. I expect more from you. I expect you to be the example that I know you are. And that took me back to my childhood because my mom could spank me all day long. My dad could spank me all day long. But when my mom would say to me, is that really the choice you want to make? Is that really what you want to do? Is that really how you want to live your life? That got me deeper. Like, please, woman, just spank me. Spankings do not last. But when she would do that to me, or when she would say, I'm disappointed in you, that would get me. That would get me more than anything. And so I call her Miss Hargrove. I'm an adult. I'm going to call her Marcy now. Okay. But when Marcy said that to me, I was like, oh. And I was just like, I went in. Actually, I made my friend go in and grab my backpack because I did not want to talk to Marcy anymore that day. Right. But I had those people that checked on me and really, even my friends, their parents would invite me over for dinner. Because remember, I was making dinner for myself. They would invite me over for dinner. They would make sure to include me. I had this one friend, Rebecca Klinkskow, now Rebecca Grubbs. And we were polar opposites, right? I was what, and she was hi. But her parents, David and Karen, I talked about David in the David episode, and I didn't realize I stopped having birthday parties. I stopped having really birthdays because I had who was going to give them to me? My mom who was dying, my dad that had left, my dad that I mean, nobody in my home. Who was going to give me a birthday party? Right. And I came from having the best birthdays. Like we would go pick out the cake. Some would be a volleyball cake. Some would be a basketball cake. I remember my best birthday with my mom is every day for a week. She gave me a little note that said, this is what we're doing today. And it was one more count day until your birthday. And maybe it was going and having ice cream. Maybe it was going and picking out a cassette tape. Whatever it was, I looked forward to getting home because I knew one of those notes would be there. And it was leading up to my birthday. But then I went from having everything to nothing. No more birthdays, no more presents, no more cakes. And I don't even know how this birthday happened this way, but mom and pop clink scale, for some reason, they gave me a birthday party. I don't even know how it came about, but can I tell you, it was the bash of the year. And we come from a small town. And when you come from a small town, alcohol is big. Beer is big. Like when you can start drinking early, go for it. That's how we felt, right? Like we thought we were doing big things because we could get some beers or some Zimas. But this birthday party, no alcohol, no beer, nothing involved, right? They lived out in this area and had this property that had some space. Let me tell you something. The cars that were lined up on this property, the kids that were there. What? We bobbed for fruit cocktail. And I'm not talking about like the cans of fruit cocktail, but instead of bobbing for apples, we had to be extra. We bobbed for fruit cocktail, which means we had oranges, apples, pears, all of the fruits in there. We were sticking our heads in this big tub. We were walking around with all of our head wet. Now all of us are wet. We did hay rides. We had a scavenger hunt. And I'm not talking a scavenger hunt just around the property. We got in our cars. Why did everyone think letting teenagers, a bunch of teenagers in different vehicles ride all over this town looking for stuff of the scavenger hunt? They had to involve other people. They actually had to write this scavenger hunt out. They went above and beyond for someone who wasn't their child. Why? And what I know now, why? Is because they were faithful, because they were leaders in our community, because they had God living inside them, and they saw this child that was broken. They gave me the best gift they could give me. They saw me. And it wasn't because of what I could do. It wasn't because I made them laugh or that I was friends with their child. They saw me and they saw that I was worthy. And they showed me. And these people in my life, these teachers, these friends, parents, the Clinkskells, what they did for me is they kept my light flickering, a light I didn't even know I had. They kept it flickering when people tried to snuff it out. They kept coming back to me and lighting it and putting their hands around it, right, to block out the wind so it wouldn't get blown out again. That's what they did for me. And I didn't even know they were doing it. I just had a really good time at that birthday. I'm 50 years old, and this had to have been probably my 17th birthday. And it was the best birthday probably of my whole life, except for the one that I just had here recently. That's a lot. That's a great memory. What a great group of people that God put in my life, that God gave me. Again, not having people like family members come to my rescue. You know, I couldn't trust love. As an adult, it triggered fear instead of comfort. My unworthiness, right, was still on high. I became a workaholic because of all this, right? But my dad came back. He came back from working in Florida. Now he wanted to parent. I'm sorry, you can't parent an adult, even a 16, 17-year-old adult. You just can't. He wanted to try to set down the law. He tried to set down the law. I started crawling in and out of my window. I think my dad never knew when I was there or when I was there. I never ever. I pretty much lived in my room, right? And I had this one friend that would come over, and she knew just to knock on my window, and I'd be like, "Hey, how are you? You want to come in, or are we going somewhere?" Like literally, never used the door. So, my dad started dating, and I'm not gonna lie, he met some women that I would have been proud to have as a stepmom. My mom probably would have been agreeable to them, right, to raise their baby because I was her baby. But he found the one that he married. My mom's name was Karen K. I'm going to refer to her as the OG because my dad brought this lady home and her name was Karen K. Yeah, you heard me right. You heard me. Same name. It's weird. Not only was it weird, it was cruel. It was cruel. And I don't even understand why it happened. But then also, my dad was grieving because I truly feel that how I looked at my mom, that's how my dad looked at my mom. I saw his adoring eyes. I saw how he looked at her. He was grieving and didn't know how to grieve. But he also brought home someone with the same name that had nothing of the same qualities of my mother. She wasn't nurturing, loving, kind, because see, that's the mom I had. I can't tell you the mom that my other siblings had, right? Because we each have our own views on things, but that's what I had. Now this lady was mean, vindictive, gross, just yucky. And maybe that's how what my dad needed to deal with the grief that he was going through. But for me, it caused a lot of damage. It deepened my grief. It confused my sense of family that was already confused, right? We went and go ahead and highlighted that more. It created resentment, and now I don't trust anyone because you tried to replace my mom with someone with the same name. Ugh. Who does that? Graduation came. My graduation present was an eviction notice. My dad came to my graduation. He didn't come to the little graduation. You know, people have graduation parties. I didn't have a graduation party. We went to Pizza Inn, and some of my family was there, and we had some pizza. But my dad didn't even show up to that. Why? I don't know. At that time, I would have told you because he's an asshole. But in this healed state of my life, I can tell you, I think it was because he was ashamed of all the things that happened, and he couldn't face some of my mom's family. He carried guilt, and my dad had a lot of pride, and he was never taught that it's okay for you as a man to be sorry and to show emotion. He was taught men have to be strong, no emotion. Men are right all the time. What I say goes. So having to say he was wrong would have put him in a very uncomfortable place. And there was one thing my dad was not going to be, and that was uncomfortable. This showed me that love was conditional. I was no longer needed as a keeper to cook and clean. He had the next Karen K. I'm sure not going to say Karen K 2.0 because that wasn't it. But he had someone to do that, right? So what good was I? It shaped me into an adult that's codependent, but yet hyper independent, terrified of vulnerability. Oh my God, please, no, I don't want that. And that taking care of someone is my only worth. And if I'm not taking care of you, what good am I? Those are the things that tore me away from God, that moved me away from God, right? I didn't realize that when we make a plan with our Heavenly Father to come to this place, which I call this ghetto place. There's a song called Earth is Ghetto, I Want to Leave. And let me tell you how accurate and a lot of times that is. But that I fully believe when God brings us to this place, right? God is so magnificent. He's so huge and so great and so gracious. And there's enough of God for everybody, right? That God said, hey, listen, here's what I'm going to do for you. Okay. I'm going to chip off a little piece of me and I'm going to stick it way down inside you. Right. And I'm going to send you down with these parents that I've picked for you. And you're going to get their height, their nose, their mouth, some of their traits, whatever it may be. But for me, for your God, for your Heavenly Father, I'm going to actually give you a little piece of me inside you called your God Center. You're going to have to fight sometimes to find it, but I'm going to give it to you. And I know at some point in your life, you're going to find it no matter what happens to you. Because, right, we have all free will. We can do everything that we need to do. And free will creates what people do to you, right? Because everybody has free will. And so even these predators, they even have God centers. They even have a little piece of God in them because God creates everything good, everything bad, everything God creates, right? So it's when you want to look within yourself to find your God center to help you heal all these traumas that have been placed upon you for whatever reason. Some you may have created. So I got tired of being tired. I got tired of hurting. I got tired of being an asshole. let's call a spade a spade. I always said I am the nicest, meanest person you'll ever meet. And I got tired of feeling that way. And you know what? I got tired of always forgetting about my joy. I got tired of being angry of what was done to me or how it was done or who did it. I just got tired. And so I had to come to God and be like, I need help. I had to realize I needed help because the traumas that I had, I carried them sometimes as a shield, right? You can't get close to me because this is what people do to me. Sometimes I carried them as a badge of honor, like, look what I've been through. You can do it because look at all the things that I've been through. Or I can work 20 million hours a day because look what I've been through. I've been through worse. And so I can do this. I can burn the candle at both ends because look what I've been through. I can do this, right? But when I came to God and I really said, hey, knock, knock, knock. You said if I knock, the door will be opened. And so I knocked. And God said, what's up? What's up? Where you been? Been looking for you. I've been here all along. I've been waiting. I'm so glad you knocked because that's how God greets us when we knock. See, sometimes we're taught, God is like, oh, where you been? You've been doing all this naughty stuff. I've been waiting for you. I got to ground you. You're going to be in trouble. No. God's just waiting for us to come back to him. God says, what's up, girl? Where you been? Oh, I seen some of the stuff you've been doing. I didn't agree with it, but you got free will. I had some fun watching some things. Look, my cat thinks I'm upset, so he has to come and save the day. Little supervisor. But God said, no, I've been seeing what you've been doing. And some's been great, some's not so much, right? So God said, hey, we're going to work on this together. It's me and you. We're together. We do this together. God didn't spank me. God didn't ground me. God didn't make me feel worthless. God said, I got you, girl. I got you. He said, but you may not like how we're going to do this. And I said, oh, what? And he's like, it's okay. You already said you're here, so we're going to do it. And listen, can I say that sometimes when walking back into your faith, sometimes it takes a long time. And sometimes God really knows who you are and says, we got to do this quick because you're going to turn around and run. And I'm not going to chase you. I'm not. Yeah. I'm not going to chase you. You have to come to me and be ready and willing. I'm not chasing after you. I'm your father. I am here and I am here to help you when you are ready. And you know, my earth father like gave me an eviction notice, right? So I wasn't real sure about this one. But I said, all right, let me see what we need to do. And he's like, okay, here we go. And God broke me gracefully. And when I say gracefully, he didn't break me to the point where I didn't think I could function. What he started to do was break down all the things that I had been taught about myself that were untrue. That's breaking gracefully. He started to show me how people viewed me and how I viewed myself. Actually, not even how people viewed me, how I viewed myself was absolutely wrong. That's breaking gracefully. So he worked me through my codependency and my need to people please. We talked about it. We worked on it. And don't get me wrong, some days I will go back to it. But then he's like, hey girl, we're kind of slipping backwards. Let's take another step, a couple of steps forward, right? He doesn't reprimand me and tell me the things I'm doing is wrong. He doesn't say I am naughty or bad because I took a couple of steps backwards. He says, it's all right. We took some steps backwards. We're going to take some steps forward, right? At the end of 2024, in my first episode, I said I had to really I ghosted everyone. I did. I ghosted everybody. I know I did. I ghosted. And let me tell you, I've been ghosted, and it's not nice. It's not. But again, God knows me, and he knows that I have this deep-seated need to people please. I have this deep-seated need to be needed. Why? Because all my life, through sexual abuse, through my mom being sick, through my mom passing away, through my dad's, stuff that he did, I served. And that is how I obtained my worthiness, is serving. And God knew if I didn't remove myself from everyone in the way that I did, I would not have completed what I needed to do for myself. So to my friends, to my family, to even acquaintances, I'm sorry. I truly am. From the depths of my soul, I am so sorry that I ghosted you. And had I been a stronger person and had been able to not have my worthiness through serving, I wouldn't have had to do that. But I had to choose myself over losing myself. I had to save my soul or lose my soul. And at this point in my life, it was time. So I'm sorry. And I am going to say this. If anyone that I ghosted is out there and they are still mad at me, I understand that. Hurt people hurt people. But if you are out there and you think that my door is not open for any reconciliation, it is. My door is always open. I didn't do it because I didn't like you. I didn't do it because you did something to me. I did it because God led me to do it, to save myself from my continuous unworthiness, because I felt if I didn't serve, I could not be loved. And God had to show me differently. God had me walk through forgiveness. I had to forgive. You know what? Not that God needs forgiveness, but I had to forgive the feelings that I had about God. I had to forgive my parents. I had to forgive my abusers. I had to forgive my family that turned a blind eye, or did they turn a blind eye? I don't know. I had to forgive them, right? So real quick, Ephesians 4:31 through 32, and some things I learned while reading the Bible. And it says, get rid of all bitterness, rage and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you. Let me tell you, forgiving people is hard. So trying to forgive dead parents is really hard. You can't, they don't talk back. Dead parents don't talk back. None of them. In case I forgot to mention, my dad, he passed away a while back, but having to forgive dead parents, they don't talk back. They don't tell you, it's okay. You're good. Everything's fine. I'm sorry. Dead parents don't tell you they're sorry. right? So I had to stand in my living room and yell at them and tell them all the things that they did wrong or that I felt that they did wrong. But when I did that, understanding came to me, which is, hey, you've been a really crappy parent. Excuse me, what, God? What, God, what did you say? Oh, how's your parenting skills? And then I had to realize what kind of parent I had been. I used to tell all my kids, your mom is your nurturer. I am here to make sure if we are not here, you can get through this world. What? Although, because I had to survive me not having active parents, one because she had died, and one because it was a choice. I then wanted to get my kids ready to battle the world instead of protecting them, covering them, and making them realize they didn't have to be adults. But I did quite the opposite. Not only was I raised as a little adult, I also did that to them. And God showed me that. And so that let me have love and compassion for my parents. Because see, I could go to my kids and have went to my kids and apologized for the way that I raised them, right? Because I raised them out of hurt how I was raised. But my parents couldn't apologize. They couldn't say they were sorry to me. So what God gave me was peace and understanding. He made me realize they did the best they could with what they had and what they understood. And my dad did the best he could in the grieving that he was going through because no one ever taught him how to grieve. No one ever taught him what it meant to lose your lifelong partner. God showed me with his love and grace how I was being a parent. And now I could understand that my parents didn't do it on purpose. We all go through trials and tribulations and traumas, and we're taught things, and it goes generation after generation after generation after generation. And it's going to be the decision, is someone in your family lineage going to step up and break that generational curse? Who's going to do it? When are they going to do it? When is it going to stop? Well, for me, it stops here. For me, it stops here. Because I'm going to live my life in joy and love. And that's exactly what I'm going to show every day. I'm not going to say I'm going to be perfect, but I am every day going to try to be joyous and loving, just as God is to me. So God also took me through grudges. Oh my God, grudges. I am a grudge holder. I am the champions of grudge holding. I can hold a grudge longer than anyone. But God said, nope, that's not what we're doing. That's not what we're doing. We're not holding grudges. We are going to release all the grudges that you have against everyone, whether things happen to you intentional or not. They could have been intentional, but God said, we're not going to hold on to them. Why? Because that's not your bag, baby. That's not your bag. You don't get to hold on to grudges. You don't get to be judge and jury. That's my job. So I said, ooh, okay. And then he said, we got one more grudge to get rid of. And I said, okay, God, I did my parents. I did my abusers. I did, these people that didn't step in when they should have. Who else, God? Like who else? Okay. Maybe friends, maybe, I don't know who else, God. And he said, oh, wait, it's the biggest one. I said, ooh, who is it? Now I'm curious. Who is it? God said, you. I said, excuse me, what? He said, you. You got to release that grudge that you have against yourself. Didn't even know I was holding a grudge against myself. But then when God took me through, hey, you know why you work so much? Your worthiness. Hey, you know why you choose partners that don't love me because of my service, but sure enjoyed it. And let me tell you something. I've had the most wonderful partners, the most wonderful people in my life that I have shared my life with. They have been fantastic, but they've also had their traumas. And when trauma meets trauma, you become codependent, right? And when you are a person that gives of yourself because that's how you love, because that's how you've been shown you're only good for that is what you can give. You pick people that need that at that time in their lives. Not that they're searching for it. They need it at that time in their lives. And I could give it. I had enough to give, right? And then God pointed it out, like all the things I didn't do for myself. And guess what? Those are grudges that you hold against yourself. So God said, we got to work on that. I said, all right, good. Hey, Carrie Joe, I don't have a grudge against you anymore. Hey, have a nice day. God said, I'm pretty sure I heard God clap and be like, nice try. Because that's how you've handled all your problems. You've skated over them. You've pushed them aside. You pushed them down. God said, no, baby, we got to cry. We got to have emotions. And he said, it's not going to feel good. It's not going to feel good. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. And man, I spent nights, days on this floor crying. Releasing, crying some more. I learned how to ground myself. The amount of baths I took is crazy. The amount gallons of water I have used. The tears I have poured out. I've never cried for someone so much in my life. I cried a lot for my mom. But let me tell you, crying to release trauma and pain that I have shoved down to the very tips of my toes was a grudge I didn't even know I had. And to release that took me, I felt like forever. And there were days where I said, God, I just can't today. I just can't. God says, okay, rest today. We'll do it again tomorrow. But every day we worked on these grudges. And I prayed. I even yelled at God. And if someone tells you you can't yell at God, they lied. They lied. They lied straight to your face because you can. Because you know what? Here's what God said. I'm huge. I'm huge. And I can take it. You know who can't take it? Your children. your parents, your friends, your family, strangers out in this world that are having a time such as you. That's who can't take it. When you go out and you're unkind and you're mean and you take things out on people. But God said, I can take you yelling at me because I'm the greatest of all. I'm the biggest of all. I'm the Alpha. I'm the Omega. I am the King of the universe. So you can yell at me and I will take it. In fact, I prefer it. And so that's what I did. And when I did all these things, God said, okay, now let's open your heart. I said, well, I love people. He said, no, you didn't. I said, well, I love myself. He said, no, you didn't. I had to open my heart to God, to others, to the truth I didn't even want to face. And then I had to open my heart to myself, right? Because I'd never loved myself because I couldn't serve myself, right? And I was only good for what I could do. So I asked God to take all my sorrow and pain away. And I said, okay, God, take all my sorrow and pain. And I came across this verse, and it's Psalms 147:3. And he says, he heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. He heals the brokenhearted. I thought everybody, this was how life was. This is how people live their life. Shit happens to you, like you're born. Shit happens to you. You stuff it down or you just get through it. You move on. Then you work the rest of your life, maybe have a partner, have some kids, and then you die, right? Because that's what I'd been shown. It's literally what happened in my life. That's what I'd been shown. But here it says, he heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. When I was a kid, my brother that's 17 months older than I am, he was an asshole. He knows it. Yeah. Right here. He made me, he locked me out of the house and I was beating on the window. We had little pane windows and it went through. And at that moment we went, oh crap, we're going to get in so much trouble. And, my mom had to rush me to the urgent care and they bound up my wound, right? They took all the shard glass out of it, right? Gave me some shots so I wouldn't feel the pain. And then they sewed it, right? They sewed it shut. They bound up my wound. That's what God did. Before he sewed back my heart, right? He removed all the sorrow and pain. And then he replaced it. He removed that sorrow and pain and that hurt. And then he replaced it. He replaced it with joy, unconditional love, kindness, a willingness to listen and understand. He replaced it with a new spirit. And then he ever so gently healed my wound, bound it up, and gave me a new life, a real life. I realized in my past, I wasn't living. I was angry. I was distraught. I felt unloved, unfulfilled. And now I was this girl that gave away her, like in the first episode when I said I was giving all my unworthy, you get a worthy, you get a worthy, you get a worthy. I realized I was giving my worthiness to everyone that I met because that's what I thought I had to do to be loved, for even anyone to be kind to me. And what God gave me after I gave my life to Him was a new heart. And here I am, healed, whole, and fully invested in this life that I have for myself and with God. Fully invested in living, not just existing. I didn't even know I was just existing. I am now living. I want to read this. It's First Peter 2, chapter 2, verse 9. And it said, but you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praise of Him who has called you out of darkness into His wonderful light. I didn't even know I was living in darkness. And then when that spotlight shone down on my soul at the end of 2024, and I saw that light, I realized. And now living my life today, and not that everything's perfect, not that I don't have fears, not that everything doesn't go my way, but I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to be with just me, because I know I'm never with just me. I know I'm always with me and God, always. Because the kingdom of heaven is within me. God resides inside of me. I am that I am. I am a child of God. I am a product of God. I am a piece of God, just as you are. So I'm going to leave you with this. If you grew up surrounded by secrets, silence, and abandonment, or carrying burdens that were never yours, I want you to hear me when I say this. None of that was your fault. The abuse was not your shame. The silence was not your responsibility. The abandonment was not your identity. And let me tell you, I carried abandonment as my identity for a long, long time. You were worthy, and you are worthy. You were always loved, and you are always loved. And God is still in you and has always been in you. And God is inviting you back to wholeness, back to Him, back to yourself, back to your joy. I want to thank every single one of you for joining in to these episodes. If you haven't heard one or two, go back and take a listen. We're on YouTube. We're new at this. We're learning how to do this, so bear with us. But you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. I'm going to be doing videos on TikTok, just little short videos of things that help me through a lot of things that I've been through. Join us. be with us. Come celebrate this new faith with us. If you have a story, contact us. But more than anything, just know that God is in you. And no matter what you do, no matter what you've done, no matter what's been done to you or what you've survived, you can always go to God with anything. And He's right there with the door wide open. When people say they have an open door policy, I don't know that that's always true, but I can tell you the one thing that I know. God always has an open door policy, and God always invites you in just as you are. Thank you for joining this episode of Holy Chuckles Podcast, where we tell real stories, witness raw faith, experience holy laughter. Join us again next Wednesday for another episode. Remember, be kind, be loving, be Christ-like.